Hey guys, I'm Brolin.
I'm Fun Sue.
And I'm Ninja Master Phil.
And we're the Fu Cru.
Today we'll be reviewing Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons, a 2013 comedy action film by legend Stephen Chow.
We're reviewing what?
Journey to the West.
I'm fucking taking this one.
Okay. That escalated quickly.
Okay, in Conquering the Demons, Stephen Chow takes a relatively different approach to the traditional retelling of Journey to the West, where most adaptations focus on either the action exploits of the Monkey King or alternatively the actual quest in progress. This one focuses very heavily on the development of Monk Zhang, the hero of the story, so to speak, as well as his troubles with the teachings, and then as he reached enlightenment and is given the quest to retrieve the Buddhist scriptures. The movie begins with a confrontation with a river demon that does an excellent job setting up the feel and the vibe of the world in this movie, as well as the different demon-fighting factions, including our co-star slash romantic lead, Miss Dwan, and other techniques and styles in the world. Whereas Monk Zhang uses kindness, caring, and a love for all life in his attempts to subdue demons. Others, not so much. After his failure in attempting to quell the river demon, it starts to bring his beliefs into question. He starts to question the teachings of his master, who may or may not be Buddha in this adaptation. It's kind of could go either way. As well as starts to actually question the meaning of greater love versus lesser love, and what should you focus on, the spiritual or the earthly. This later progresses into an encounter with his second demon, just further forcing the rift between both his teachings on the earthly, as well as further questioning his techniques for demon hunting, as his encounter with Kale Hog the pig demon ends disastrously, and all sorts of delightful kung fu shenanigans. This eventually, of course, progresses to the part we all know, which is when he finally encounters Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, and finally reaches his enlightenment and the pinnacle that leads into the portion of the story we are much more familiar with, as the two branches we know finally kind of converge, and hopefully will progress in further films into an amazing adaptation of the rest of the story. Stephen Chow is very much changed his style in this movie. A child dies in the first 15 minutes. This is not your daddy's Chow. There's a great deal of comedy still. It maintains, but it's a lot more used to make a very careful balance of the tension and the drama. A horrifying, sight will immediately be offset, kind of leave you with all that awkward, well, that was weird, but okay. It never gets so bad you snap.
Which, when you think about it, is a Stephen Chow signature. You look at Kung Fu Hustle, it's really just about two homeless men turning to a life of crime to escape desperate destitution. God of Cookery has multiple murders in it and abuse. Shaolin Soccer is about a man trying to use propaganda to spread a way of life that's dying. Stephen Chow is really good at presenting dark material in a really funny way. This movie, I would say, is probably his best balance of it, because usually what he does is bring in the subject and then just go super zany. In this one, I think it, as you said, it balances more.
Yeah.
Like it just stays dark with humor as opposed to just going off rails.
This is much more of a dark comedy or a comedy drama than Stephen Chow's usual slapstick zaniness with a really poignant undertone. Stephen Chow's love of Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, it's still present in this movie, but it's definitely much more toned down. There's only a couple of scenes that really bring back that slapstick cartoon vibe. There's one very early in the fight with the river demon. The fight between the demon hunters and Kale Hog has a pretty solid one. But all the really big fights, really it's not present. Like the one with the final confrontation with Sun Wukong, the actual primary encounter with Kale Hog, and the bulk of the river demon encounter, really it's just not nearly there as much as it is in things like Kung Fu Hustle. What do you think, Brolin?
Alright, I love Stephen Chow. I still have yet to finish God of Cookery all the way through, but what I've seen has been very, very good. Kung Fu Hustle is one of my top favorites. Shaolin Soccer was amazing. It's never been a poor eye for like constructing interesting scenes or well written zany humor with darker content that has like taken me out of him. But one thing that as a director he occasionally like needs to improve on, the pacing was really kind of off in this movie. It's not to say what you go through isn't enjoyable. I don't want to make that. I don't want to say that that's the case because it's not. It's literally just comes down to like there are parts of this movie where you're sitting there and it's just you're there, you're excited. There's this unsettling disquiet that you feel as like waiting for the ruckus to hit, waiting for it to be unleashed. But it's not even that. I mean, like there are moments in this movie that are not like that. The second act where they confront the pig demon is easily, in my opinion, the best constructed scene in the movie. Because you have these two characters we haven't met. The transition is... it exists, which is not necessarily that common amongst Chinese cinema. But you meet these two traveling characters, and you don't really know who they are. And it ends up not mattering very long. But it just kind of like this is a scene where I'll say like the horror elements were for the audience's benefit, not the actor's benefit. It's like there's two different ways to shoot horror scenes. Like there's things that are aimed directly at the audience and things aimed directly at the characters in the movie. And this one was very much the latter of that category because they just densely walk into all of like their eventual demise through supernatural zonkiness, and the whole while we're going, there is something very odd going on here that they are not seeing. There is something clearly afoot here, and then what happens, and then he comes in, and we're like, oh, now we're back with our main character. I wonder what that setup was all for. And then you see he's knocking on the same cave tavern inn door to go in, and we're like, oh shit. And that scene was very, very, very well done. But it's just moments that could have been cut. Like the fat needed to be trimmed on many scenes. One of the scenes is like the third act when he's hanging out with the bandits and the other demon hunters, and it solely to introduce a few concepts that probably could have been cut down in time quite a bit. I understand their emotional resonance in the movie, which no doubt my two compatriots will go into in no small part. But it does accomplish the task. It doesn't do it wrong. It just, you know, there's a saying I go to, like, why would you write a mediocre 5-page paper when you could get the same message across in 3 pages and not occasionally bore your audience a little bit? It's just, fluff is never necessarily a good thing to have if it's just spending time in that moment. Especially into a modern film perspective, you kind of need to move it along a little bit more in certain parts, and that's just my opinion of the movie. I still love the shit out of this movie, and it's very good, very, very good. It's just it kind of just holds me back. Like it's just more. I want more Stephen Chow. I just want more of this movie to come to me at times, and it's like no. You have to wait. You have to wait until after dinner. You gotta get through this. You have to get through this emotional feels section, even though large portions of the section are not progressing the point it's trying to convey. That's just the way There's too much lettuce on the hamburger. That's what happened. The hamburger's not bad. There's too much lettuce on it.
That's an interesting metaphor. Fun, Sue?
Well, the one thing I don't feel like we've touched on yet, which I think is actually a relatively big accomplishment considering how much this movie does otherwise, is this movie does actually succeed in building its own world. Now, most Journey to the West movies pretty much just take place in mythological China, primarily the Taoist/Buddhist mythology China, primarily because the story is a Buddhist propaganda piece, if ever there was one. In this version of Tales, the two kind of big things that show up that the original text doesn't cover a whole lot of is, first, in this universe that Stephen Chow has created, all demons used to be people that suffered horribly unjust ends, and their anger and hatred for humanity because of those circumstances is what turned them into demons, which makes our main characters more compassionate, less action-oriented, beady-up demon hunting style far more tolerable and understandable as opposed to making him just kind of look like a weak sauce whiny punk. This world building is really good, which also makes up one of the weird paradoxes of this movie. Between like its steampunk wooden carts and its crazy flying sword magicians, etc., etc., this is probably the least accurate plot-wise Journey to the West adaptation I've ever seen, but mood-wise is the most accurate to the original text I've ever experienced, outside of maybe some of the earlier animated stuff, which were just literal retellings. The thing is the original story, like I said, is Buddhist propaganda, so it focuses on Monk Zhang being a kind-hearted, compassionate soul, and how much better that way of life just is than the then traditional setting of war-torn China. In this film, that's what they focus on. Most other films, it's, hey, I got 3 demons that kick ass. Oh, and there's this monk guy, he's riding a horse and they're going to get somewhere at some point. Don't worry about it. Ass kicking! This movie focuses a lot on just how human our main monk is, which probably, if they do make sequels, which they've been talking about apparently, that's going to help us feel a lot more for the character as he kind of takes a side role to the more action-heavy second and third parts of the story. Another thing this movie does I think Stephen Chow should get credit for. I love Stephen Chow. I've seen most, if not all, of Stephen Chow's filmography. I've seen its highs, I've seen its lows. One thing he tends to be really bad at is making good female romantic leads. Even in some of his best movies, they're just like, yeah, why are they there? This movie has finally, Stephen Chow has finally made a female romantic lead that is just a really cool character and someone I'm like, yeah, that's someone that screen time should be dedicated to. The person I'm referring to is Miss Juan. She is the archetypical demon hunter that opposes our Monk Zhang-style demon hunter. She is very violent, lusty, crazy, knock things up, try to get her man kind of girl, as opposed to the usual Stephen Chow, just kind of random damsel that really doesn't engage in any sort of way.
I cook dumplings and have a patchy face. Woo! Dab.
I'm ugly, but I own a really good food cart. For once, it's someone that actually has like stuff going on. And I feel like we should all credit Mr. Chow for that, and I really hope his later female romantic leads are more like Miss Juan and less like his previous ones. Now, as much as we keep talking about the humanitarian aspect of this movie, and its focus on kindness and compassion, it's not that it skips out on the action department. I would argue out of the numerous kung fu movies we've seen, including Buddha's Palm, this movie might have the most insane martial arts mysticism finishing move I have ever seen.
Well, it has that... Okay. One thing I like that occasionally happens, and Sorcerer and Whitesnake does this too. These are the two best examples of this, where characters, like, hit enlightenment. Like, that actual thing that they're chasing and spiritually growing their entire lives towards. They hit enlightenment, and it takes it to the next level. In Sorcerer and Whitesnake, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we were fighting? Oh, you're gonna summon a tsunami and giant snake monsters to, like, kill me? I was under the impression that we were being civil about this. Excuse me one moment. And then he hits enlightenment, and, like, the 1,000 palms of Buddha, of pure light and energy, form up and are like, you were saying, and then of course that movie concludes. And in this one too, when it finally hits it, when it finally dawns on him, when he has his epiphanical moment, he's sitting there and he begins chanting the actual, like, Buddhist sutras, and the light is shining off of him, and, like, rocks are, like, bouncing off of him harmlessly, and it's just like, it's too late. Like, I just want to go to the Monkey King at that moment. I want to step inside his world. I want to be like, hey, Mr. Monkey King,
you can go home. It's
no, like,
over.
no, he's not going anywhere. That's where is he going? Nowhere. But I just want to pat him on the shoulder and be like, you gave it your best. I'm going to get out the way now, because this is going to end very poorly for you in the next few moments.
What follows is the greatest palm strike in all Buddhism history, including greater than the movie Buddha's Palm.
Celestial Cosmic Buddha!
Yeah, this strike from Buddha is the only kung fu move I've ever seen that actually gives me motion sickness. Like, when they just zoom in on the infinite massiveness that is coming down in a fiery palmy death, I got motion sickness.
If you've ever played Bayonetta or Asura's Wrath, that level of scale, if you've played that. Roll in, what would you give it?
It's going to seem a little lower in comparison to you guys, I guarantee you, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It accomplished everything it needed to. It was a very, very enjoyable movie. It's not a Stephen Chow movie I want to watch like 100 times in a row like his other movies. It just kind of you have to be in that mood in that moment to watch it, which isn't a bad thing. It's a different Stephen Chow movie. So
as different as it is, I think it's probably the movie that pulls off all the Stephen Chow tropes the best. I certainly think it's probably one of my favorite Stephen Chows. I will probably always have big places in my heart for Shaolin Soccer and Forbidden City Cop, but I'm probably going to have to give it an 8.5 out of 10, because not only is it probably the best Stephen Chow movie, which is saying a lot, not only is it probably the best Journey to the West movie, that's saying a lot, it's also probably one of the best martial arts comedies I've seen in a very long time, which is saying even more. So I'm definitely going to have to give it an 8.5. There's no such thing as a perfect movie in my mind, but this one certainly hits everything it needs to hit, and it does it exemplarily.
In case you haven't gathered, I adore this movie. This is hands down my favorite Stephen Chow, whereas there may be funnier moments in some of his other works. This definitely has the best action as far as I'm concerned. Just the best straight up fight choreography and just over the top craziness. And it's just the best movie he's released. Like, this may be kind of by a Westerner view of cinema, but this just flows to me a lot better than anything else he's done so far. All said and done, it's still not perfect. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. There was one other movie of the 2012-2013 martial arts genre that I think to actually outclass this one in the past few years. We may do a review of that at some point in the future. We'll see. But yeah, as far as this goes, 9 out of 10. I adore this movie. I can pretty much watch it whenever. Like, there will be the rare one I'm like, I want something a bit more slapsticky. But normally, this hits all the right notes between comedy and drama. And I love it.
I can't wait for it to hit U.S. theaters March 7th.
March 7th. It's going to be sweet. Make sure you go see it.
It's finally have Stephen Chow have a scale as grand as his vision, and it's worth seeing in theaters. I swear to God. If you miss out,
yeah, I'll definitely
you'll live to regret it.
In spite of what I said, I'll definitely be seeing it in theaters. This movie will only be better on the big screen.
Yeah. We're going to track this one down. This definitely falls into the I will drive out of state if I have to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's our review of Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons, coming to a theater near you soon.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and if there's anything you'd like to see us do, our plate's a bit full, but we're always happy to hear ideas. Feel free to comment below. Let us know what you want to see.
And Fu Cru is on Facebook now, so don't forget to go and like our page.
Facebook.com/Fu Cru Reviews.